If you care about how ordinary people endure extraordinary collapse, you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel now, because this is the kind of hard-earned knowledge that disappears when it isn't passed on. Today's episode is about a system that saved lives without headlines or medals: the civilian barter economies of World War II. For the first minute, stay with me. What you're about to hear isn't nostalgia or myth. It's a working manual forged under rationing, bombardment, and occupation. When currency failed, when laws broke down, civilians rebuilt exchange from scratch. They didn't theorize, they survived. How necessity erased money and forced civilians to invent parallel markets. Across Europe and parts of Asia, wartime controls shattered trust in official money. Price ceilings, ration cards, and shortages made legal markets unreliable. In occupied cities and bombed-out towns, civilians quickly learned that survival depended on goods, not banknotes. In places like Siege of Leningrad, calories became currency. In occupied France and Poland, soap, tobacco and alcohol replaced cash. This wasn't criminal opportunism, it was adaptive economics. When a wage could not buy bread, a wedding ring could. When a ration card could not be honoured, a pair of boots could. The first lesson is blunt and timeless. Exchange survives when value is tangible and immediate. How ration cards created ceilings, not supply, and why bartering filled the gap. Rationing promised fairness, but delivered scarcity. Governments capped prices and distributed coupons, yet transport disruptions and hoarding meant shelves stayed empty. Civilians responded by building networks that bypassed official channels. A farmer might trade eggs for city-made tools, a tailor might alter coats in exchange for potatoes. In the Netherlands during the hunger winter, urban families walked miles to farms, with household goods hidden under coats, trading linens and furniture for food. The practical takeaway is simple. When official distribution fails, people trade across skills and geography. Today's parallel is obvious. Cultivate at least one tradable skill and one storable good that solves an immediate problem. How trust replaced law and reputation became the real currency. Black markets weren't anonymous free-for-alls. They ran on reputation. A trader who shorted weights or sold diluted alcohol was quickly frozen out. Neighbourhoods policed themselves because a bad actor endangered everyone. In occupied territories under the Nazi Germany, penalties were severe, yet trust networks persisted. Introductions mattered. Transactions happened through friends of friends. This teaches a second lesson. Resilience depends on social capital. In modern terms, build relationships before crisis, not during it. Know who grows food, who repairs things, who has storage, and who can be trusted when enforcement disappears. So, let's talk about how everyday items quietly became standardized units of exchange. Civilians, they converged on items that were divisible, durable, and, universally desired. Cigarettes were the classic example across Europe and among Allied troops, including those from the Allied forces. Soap, sugar, coffee, and stockings, these held value because they were scarce, yet familiar. Oh, and alcohol? That functioned as both morale and medicine. Now, the hidden insight here is standardization. Barter works best when communities informally agree on what makes for good money. For practical application, it's wise to stock items that store well, split easily, and honestly meet recurring needs. Avoid novelty. Choose boring essentials people recognize instantly. Now, let's consider how women, children, and the elderly anchored survival economies. The myth centers on smugglers and gangsters, but the reality was, well, much quieter. Women managed household exchanges, stretched rations, and negotiated trades. Children acted as messengers and scouts, mostly because they drew less suspicion. Elderly craftsmen repaired shoes, sharpened tools, or mended nets for food. This division of labour, really, kept families alive. The lesson for today is inclusion. Resilience improves when everyone contributes a function. So identify what each person can trade: time, skill, knowledge, or access, and formalise it within your circle before stress tests arrive. Now, let's talk about how risk management really determined who survived those repeated crackdowns. Barter, you see, always carried a fair bit of danger. Police raids, confiscations and informants, these were constant threats, always lurking. The folks who managed to keep going, well, they mitigated risk by breaking large trades into smaller ones, rotating their meeting points, and crucially, never advertising their stockpiles. In places like Warsaw and Paris, exchanges often happened at dawn, or even during air raids, when patrols were distracted. If you want to apply this to modern preparedness, do it carefully. Decentralize your supplies, avoid single points of failure, and above all, keep your transactions discreet. Redundancy, in the end, beats bravado every time. So, how do these wartime systems map directly onto modern survival planning? Well, this isn't just academic history, it's a real blueprint. Just replace ration cards with disrupted supply chains, price controls with sudden inflation, and occupation with infrastructure failure. The mechanics, honestly, are identical. Build tangible stores, develop tradable skills, invest in trust, choose standardized goods, share labor, and manage risk. Test small exchanges now, trade surplus produce for repairs, offer your skills for supplies, so that, when the time comes, the system already exists. It's all about being prepared before you need it. Now, why does remembering civilian barter matter even more than remembering battles? Well, battles end. Economies, though, they linger. The civilians who survived World War II did so by reinventing exchange right at the kitchen table level. They showed us that value isn't printed, it's agreed upon. If you truly want to understand survival, you must study these quiet systems just as closely as any campaign map. They are, in fact, the hidden infrastructure of endurance. If this deep dive has sharpened the way you think about history and preparedness, do consider subscribing to the channel and share this episode with someone who values serious practical knowledge. This is the legacy of survival, and really it only stays alive when we pass it on.